Honestly, 63 doesn't feel like anything special. It's not a milestone. It's not a big round number. Just kind of hangs there feeling tired. I started my morning the same way I always do. Black coffee. A crossword puzzle. That familiar creak of the porch swing beneath me. And the same stubborn patch of grass out front that refuses to stay green no matter how much water I pour into it. It was quiet, that kind of soft, lonely quiet I've grown used to since Ezra stopped calling. And then came the knock. Not a double tap. Not the usual hustle of the mailman or the neighborhood kid pushing fundraiser coupons. Just one solid knock. And footsteps walking away. When I opened the door, there it was, a plain brown box. Neatly taped. A single thin blue ribbon tied around the center. And as soon as I saw the handwriting, I knew. Even after 3 years, I would have recognized it blindfolded. Ezra's writing always looked like a blueprint, sharp, exact, no loops or curls. Always in blue ink. I didn't open it right away. I just stood there barefoot on the mat, staring at those careful letters. Marlene Greaves. Whispering it under my breath, like hearing my own name in his handwriting, might mean something different now. Back inside, I placed the box on the kitchen table. My coffee had gone cold. I reheated it and sat down, folding my hands in my lap like I was waiting for something. I don't even know what. 3 years of nothing. Not a single call. Not even a card when I was sick with pneumonia. Not a word when my sister passed away. And now this? Eventually, curiosity won. Under the wrapping was a clean white box. Inside, wrapped like they were precious, were cookies. Dozens of them. Each one hand-decorated. Tiny blue flowers, golden leaves, sugar-dusted stars, every single one different. Perfect. Beautiful. Ezra had never baked a day in his life. No long note, just a small card taped inside the lid. Happy birthday, Mom. Let's start over. I held that little card like it might vanish if I blinked. My throat got tight, not quite tears, just that ache you get when you want to believe something, but you're afraid to. Afraid it might not mean what you hope it does. I didn't eat them. Not one. I wanted to, but I couldn't. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was something softer, something I couldn't explain, but couldn't ignore either. I took one cookie, placed it gently in a small Tupperware container, sealed it, and tucked it into the fridge. The rest I rewrapped carefully. There was someone I thought of right away, Ruth Langford. Ezra's mother-in-law. She lived just 15 minutes away and had always been kind to me, especially when things between Ezra and me got complicated. If anyone deserved something sweet, it was her. And honestly, it felt easier to give the cookies away than sit there wondering what they meant. That afternoon I drove over. The sun was casting that soft orange glow through the trees. Her wind chimes were already singing in the breeze. I handed her the box with a smile, brushing off her gentle protests. Later that night, standing in my kitchen, I looked at the empty spot on the table where the box had been. And I told myself I was glad it was gone, even though I wasn't really sure if that was true. The next morning, just as I was pouring my second cup of coffee, the phone rang. The sound made me jump a little. Nobody calls me that early anymore. And definitely not from that number. Ezra. I didn't answer right away. My hand hovered over the phone, frozen. Like touching it might burn me. It rang one more time and I picked up. Hello. Hi, Mom. His voice, calm, casual, floated through the line like everything was fine. Like 3 years of silence hadn't weighed on us both like a brick. Happy birthday, he added. A little late, I know. Ezra, I said softly, settling into my chair, holding the coffee mug in both hands. I got your package. A quiet laugh from his end. Wasn't sure you would. Wasn't sure you'd even open it, honestly. I did, I said. It surprised me. He paused, and then asked almost like he didn't want to sound too eager. So how were they? The cookies? I took a breath. Oh, I didn't eat them. I gave them to Ruth. The silence that followed was sharp. I looked at the screen thinking maybe the call dropped. It hadn't. You gave them to Ruth? His voice changed instantly. The warmth disappeared. Yes, I answered slowly. She's always had a sweet tooth. And I wasn't sure what to do with them. He didn't say anything at first. I could hear his breathing tight, uneven. And then, almost under his breath but rising fast, he said, You did what? Felt like being slapped. Ezra, what's wrong? They weren't for her, he snapped. They were for you. Only you. His voice wavered. Not from sadness, no, it was something else. Frustration maybe. Or panic. I couldn't quite tell. I just sat there frozen, holding my coffee that had already gone cold in my hands. I didn't know, I said quietly. My voice sounded small. Right. Of course you didn't. That bitterness thick and sharp cut right through his words. You never do. Then the line went dead. He hung up before I could respond. The dial tone buzzed in my ear. I set the phone down slowly, staring at nothing, just the kitchen counter in front of me. My heart wasn't racing, but every beat felt like it was pounding deeper, almost like it wanted me to listen. Only you. That's what he said. I stood up, walked to the fridge, and opened it. It was still there. That tiny container, one perfect cookie inside, untouched. I closed the door and leaned back against the counter. And that's when I heard it. The landline in the hallway. Almost nobody calls that phone anymore. I walked toward it, a knot already forming in my stomach. The line crackled when I picked it up like it hadn't carried a voice in years. Marlene. It was Leah, Ezra's wife. Yes. Her voice was tight, almost like it might break. It's Ruth. She's in the hospital. I didn't even realize I was sitting down until I already had. What happened? She collapsed this morning. She was throwing up, couldn't keep her balance, really confused. At first I thought it was just the flu. But it kept getting worse. They're still running tests. My mouth felt dry. Did she eat anything strange? I asked. A pause. She mentioned cookies. Said you brought them over. I did. I gave her the box Ezra sent me. Leah went silent. I could hear hospital sounds in the background monitors, footsteps, a squeaky cart rolling down the hall. Do you think they made her sick? She asked softly. I don't know, I whispered. I didn't eat any myself. Another pause. If you think of anything you'll tell me, right? Of course. We hung up. I stayed right there, not moving, staring at the wall while the sun outside faded. The living room dimmed into that soft, gray kind of darkness, and I didn't bother turning on a light. I just stayed. Hours later, I wandered into the kitchen. Not because I was hungry. I just needed to do something, anything to feel normal. So I started cleaning. Wiping counters. Folding towels that didn't need folding. Then I opened the trash to take it out and something caught my eye. Near the bottom, there was a small plastic bottle. Clear. No label. Just a faint ring of white powder clinging to the inside. I reached in and pulled it out, turning it over in my hands. I didn't recognize it. It wasn't mine. The cap was still screwed on tight. I opened the fridge again. The cookie was still there, tucked in its little container like it had been waiting. My hand started shaking as I lifted it out. I couldn't even remember why I saved it. Probably just wanted something sweet for later, a small kindness to myself. Now I couldn't even look at it without my stomach twisting. I carried the cookie and that strange little bottle into the study and set them on the desk. The desk lamp made the sugar crystals sparkle. I sat down, folded my hands, and stared. Was it meant for me? Was I the one supposed to eat it? The questions hovered in the air like fog. Too big to grasp. Too scary to say out loud. Later, just before bed, I called Janelle. She worked at a lab. Owed me a favor. I didn't explain much, just told her I needed something tested, quietly. She said she could meet me in the morning. After hanging up, I stood there in the dark for a long time. Still hearing Ezra's voice in my head. You did what? The cookie stayed in the fridge. So did the dread. The lab was tucked behind a medical building on the edge of town, one of those places you only find if you're looking. Janelle met me in the parking lot herself. Her lab coat looked too crisp for that early in the morning. She didn't ask a lot of questions. Just raised an eyebrow when I handed her the container. This one of those favors I'll regret? She asked, half joking. I tried to smile, but it didn't land. Just tell me what's in it. She nodded and disappeared inside. I sat in my car. Engine running. Radio off. My hands were freezing. I couldn't bring myself to drive away. That's when the memories started crawling in. Ezra at 8 folding napkins at dinner like it was origami. Ezra at 10 throwing a tantrum because I rearranged the pantry by color instead of size. Ezra at 12 silent for a full week because I used the wrong ketchup brand on his sandwich. I used to call them quirks. Said he was just particular. sensitive, brilliant at school, well-behaved in public, perfect child on paper. But I remembered other things too. The way he watched people eat. Watched me. The time I made cookies with walnuts by accident, and he spat one out like it was poison, then scrubbed his mouth till it bled. The way he went completely still when he was disappointed, like he was filing it away to use later. Mid-morning, the hospital called. Ruth wasn't doing any better. They were moving her case to internal medicine, still no answers. No one mentioned the cookies. And I didn't bring them up. I sat in the kitchen, hands around a mug of tea I didn't drink. The tea went cold. The house creaked around me, like it knew something. Ezra always played the long game. He didn't explode. He calculated. You could almost see it, how he'd take a slight, store it, then sharpen it later. When the phone finally rang after noon, I jumped. "It's Janelle," she said. "We ran the standard tests. Then I told them to go deeper." I held my breath. "There's something in the cookie." A pause. "Traces of a compound linked to a plant called aconitum. Monkshood." Her voice tightened. "It's extremely toxic. And it absolutely doesn't belong in food." My heart dropped. This wasn't a mistake. It was intentional. I closed my eyes for a second. "You said someone actually ate these?" I couldn't even answer her. She paused for a moment, then said quietly, "I'll file it discreetly." After we hung up, I just sat there. For what felt like forever. Still. Frozen. My son had sent me poison. In a gift box. And I gave it away like it was nothing. Later that night, I was outside again. Walking up and down the front path like I was searching for something. I didn't know what. The sun was sinking low, and the air smelled faintly like cinnamon. Or maybe that was just a memory playing tricks on me. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Picked up. The voice was calm, clipped and unfamiliar. "This is Detective Fallon Reyes. Is this Marlene Greaves?" I hesitated. "Yes. I was referred by Dr. Janelle Marraro. She mentioned you requested a toxicology analysis on a food item and asked for any concerning results to be reported to authorities. Is that right?" I wanted to say no. To pretend like this was all a big misunderstanding. To protect what little was left of what used to be a family. But instead I heard myself say, "Yes, that's correct." There was a pause on her end. Not cold, just professional. "Would you be willing to meet and talk through the results? And your concerns?" I said yes. But it felt like I was signing something I couldn't take back. We met that afternoon in a small, plain office behind the police station. Nothing dramatic. Reyes looked young, early 30s, maybe with sharp, restless eyes. He offered me water. I declined. My hands were busy anyway. Nervously folding and unfolding a tissue I didn't even remember bringing. He started gently. Asked about Ezra, how long it had been since we spoke, when the package arrived, what was inside, and how Ruth Langford fit into all of it. I answered every question the best I could, sticking to the facts. Trying to keep the emotion down. Even though it kept pushing up in my chest. He didn't interrupt. Just listened and took notes on a yellow legal pad. Then came the harder question. "Do you believe your son intended to hurt you?" I looked down at my hands. "I don't want to believe that," I said. "But the cookie was poisoned. Ruth didn't make it. I didn't make it. He sent it. And that bottle I found in the trash? That wasn't mine. And the timing fits. Would there be a reason he'd want to hurt you? Money? Family issues?" I flinched. "He's always resented me. Always. Blamed me for things I couldn't fix." Reyes gave a small nod. But I saw something flicker in his eyes, doubt maybe. All I had was a poisoned cookie and this feeling in my gut. No fingerprints. No witnesses. No confession. Then he leaned in a little. "Would you be willing to submit the cookie and the bottle as evidence? So we can open a formal case?" I froze. Felt like betrayal. Even though I knew better. Even though Ezra made the first move. "Yes," I said. "If there's even a chance he's done this before. Or might do it again. I can't stay quiet." He nodded, stood up, and the meeting was over. "We'll document everything and keep you informed. If anything changes, call me directly." As I walked out, the sky had turned that dusky blue-gray. I climbed into my car, locked the doors without thinking, and just sat there. Hands on the wheel. It wasn't guilt. It was something older. Heavier. Motherhood doesn't just end when your child changes. The same hands that used to pack Ezra's lunches were now the same hands that passed along evidence, trying to understand how the boy I raised had become the man who sent me poison in a box wrapped with ribbon. That night I didn't sleep. I left the hallway light on. Every creak in the floor made me sit up and listen. By morning I had made up my mind. If he didn't want me to figure out what he was capable of, he should have been more careful. I was going to see him, not as his mother, but as the woman he underestimated. And I was bringing a recorder. He opened the door with a tight smile, the kind that doesn't touch your eyes. He looked thinner, hollowed out somehow. "Mom," he said, stepping aside. "This is a surprise." I smiled back. "Barely. I heard about Ruth. Just wanted to check in. See how she's doing." "She's still at St. Luke's," he replied. "Leia's with her. They think it's a virus." I nodded like I believed him. The recorder in my coat pocket was already running. His kitchen looked perfect, of course. Every item in place like always. "I'm sorry we didn't get to talk more the other day," I said. "The cookies were lovely." He raised an eyebrow. "Were they?" I watched him closely. "I didn't try them, actually. Ruth did. She said the star-shaped one was her favorite." There it was. That flicker. His eyes narrowed just for a second. His voice softened. "Ruth picked the stars." I hadn't told him which shape she ate, just that she liked one. "Yes," I replied slowly. "She mentioned it." He turned to the sink and started rinsing a glass that didn't need rinsing. She's always been about the aesthetics. Never looked past what was underneath. I watched him. "You never told me you'd gotten into baking." He laughed, but it didn't sound right. "New hobby. Helps me unwind." "Where'd you learn to use monk's hood?" He froze. Not dramatically, just enough that I noticed. Something shifted in his posture. "I don't even know what that is," he said too fast. "Dr. Mororo does." He stared at the glass in his hand. "You went to Janelle. She ran the test." "It was in the cookie," I said. He put the glass down carefully. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but throwing around accusations like that won't end well. Not without proof." "I think you already gave me enough," I said, my voice steady. "You slipped up." He stared at me, face unreadable. But something behind his eyes changed. Something calculating. "You've always misunderstood me," he said. "No," I replied. "I think this is the first time I see you clearly." I reached for my purse, tried to keep my hand from shaking. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. As I turned to leave, my eyes landed on the counter behind him. There, half hidden under a dish towel, was another bottle. Same shape as the one I'd found in the trash. Ezra noticed. He moved to block it casually, like he was just stretching. "I should go," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've already taken up enough of your time." He smiled, that same light tone back in his voice. "Tell Ruth I said hi." I stepped out into the cold, my whole body tense, like every nerve was on high alert. The phone was still recording in my coat pocket. I didn't stop it. Not until I was back in my car, doors locked, engine running. And before I could even talk myself out of it, I sent the audio straight to Detective Reyes. Then I drove to St. Luke's. Ruth was still unconscious. Leia sat beside her, eyes red from crying. I told her everything. Every single thing. By the time I left, the sun had disappeared and the sky felt like it was about to collapse. That night I crashed on the couch. Left the hallway light on. Kept my phone right next to me. I didn't really sleep. Maybe a few minutes here and there. I kept waiting. At 3:17 a.m. the phone rang. I didn't even flinch. Detective Reyes called again just after sunrise. He said the recording combined with the toxicology report from Ruth's chart was enough. They had what they needed. Ezra was taken in before noon. Calm. Collected. Like he'd practiced it in front of a mirror. I didn't go to the station. There was nothing left to say. Ruth started waking up slowly in the days that followed. First she was confused. Then she was thankful. Then, quiet. When Leia couldn't be there, I sat with her. She didn't ask what happened. And I didn't tell her. One quiet afternoon, I reached for her hand. "I'm sorry," I said. She gave it a gentle squeeze. That was all. That was enough. Later that week, Leia broke down in my kitchen, said she should have seen the signs. Ezra had become distant. Strange. She'd found notes in his journals she couldn't make sense of. Jars filled with dried herbs and plants she didn't recognize. She thought maybe he was just dealing with something. She didn't know what. But Ezra had been living a secret life online, posting under a fake name on these obscure herbal forums, writing detailed posts about extractions, dosages, interactions. The language was so clinical, almost cold. But looking back now, it's terrifying. Some of the exact terms he used matched the toxins they found in Ruth's system. It all came down to one small choice. One cookie I didn't eat. That Tuesday morning was quiet. I opened the fridge and pulled out the container. The cookie was still there. The frosting had gone dull. Detective Reyes had handed me a sealed evidence bag the day Ezra was arrested. "If you ever want to keep it," he said. "Not for revenge, just for clarity." I slid the cookie into the bag and sealed it shut. It felt heavier than it should have. That night, I emptied out a little fireproof box from the hall closet. I placed the cookie inside. Right next to it, I added the birthday card that came in the package. "Happy birthday, Mom. Let's start over." I locked the box and placed it high up on the very top shelf. Not to forget, but to remember how close I came to missing the truth. After that, I stood in the kitchen for a long while. Everything was still. The whole house felt quiet. And then I turned off the light and walked down the hall, not sure if I finally felt safe, or if I ever truly had.